welcome to episode number 121 of the LSR Podcast. My name is Matt Brown, joined each and every week by the brightest minds in all of the gaming industry. With me, I have Dustin Gouker. I have Adam Candee. You can follow them on the Twitter machine for free, and you should at Dustin Gouker, at Adam Candee, 2 E's, no Y. If you hate yourself, you can follow me at Matt Brown M2. Of course, all of the ratings, all the reviews, all the things like that, subscribes. We really do appreciate that. Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Google, all the places you listen to podcasts helps us climb up the charts there. More people listen to this thing, so we do appreciate all of those from you guys. Of course, you can tweet Dustin directly. He loves whenever you DM him. Tell him everything that you hate about the show because it's his fault. Tennessee, we'll talk a little bit about that. We'll talk about BetMGM and the Entain thing, what's going on there. Connecticut, what's going on in Connecticut. Are people happy? Are people not happy? We shall see. But let's start things off here, Dustin, with a pretty big bombshell here whenever we're talking about, hey, who are some guys that have massive followings? Who are some guys that are synonymous with sports? Who are some guys that may or may not be able to be plucked up and picked off by one of these sportsbook companies? And Front Office Sports a couple of days ago dropped something that we were like, I mean, I'll admit, when it came across mine, I'm like, no way. But the more I think about it, I'm like, well, maybe so.
Yeah, Adam Schefter, noted NFL insider, the Front Office Sports was reporting that Caesars Sportsbook is going to make a run at him. And this is, we talk at length on this podcast about sportsbooks and their endeavors in media to both to create media partnerships and to own media themselves. And it doesn't get much bigger than trying to own one of the people who's constantly dropping news in the NFL space. So that part is interesting. And I can't be the first person to have thought of this, but this also strikes me as kind of weird. So Caesars has already gotten some ex-ESPNers in Kenny Mayne and Trey Wingo, and Schefter also fits that bill. But it's kind of weird, that if a sportsbook hires Schefter and he is getting inside information about the NFL, the people his sources in the NFL are then giving the information to a sportsbook first. That's it becomes, you can start your wheels turning. Like, this is like, will they continue doing that, and the optics of that, and who knows what kind of firewall they put up, but Caesars can then use that intel before anyone else does to change markets and things like that. So maybe I'm a little bit, not crying wolf, but I'm putting too much into this. But it does seem weird to me if we're having and they also put that Woj and the Adrian Wojnarowski is a possibility for jumping to Caesars or a sportsbook too. Like that, if we have the two people who are most famous for breaking news really in two of the major sports in North America, and they work for a sportsbook, that's kind of weird and maybe not cool.
Yeah, I know. Question mark. I don't really know. I know. I'm the same way. I was trying to process this as well. I mean, listen, if we're talking about reach though, Adam, 8.6 million Twitter followers for Adam Schefter. He is the Bible when it comes to all things football news. I don't believe anything. I don't take anything other than just as a grain of salt unless he confirms it. And so he is a dude that is certainly, is as synonymous as for a non-athlete, he is as synonymous with a sport, and maybe even more synonymous with a sport than many of the athletes that actually play the sport itself.
And, of course, Adam Schefter's been in the news this week for some revelations about how he acquires some of the information that he gets, and the fact that, there have been some rumors out there about Adam Schefter back to his days covering the NFL in Denver about giving Mike Shanahan the option to read certain stories before they ran. Of course, they're just rumors. You don't know anything, but you see something like what happened this week, and you think, well, maybe there is some credence to that. And I think that's the natural evolution of this discussion. Don't think of Adam Schefter as a journalist or reporter who would be going to a sports book. You think about him as an information broker, which is essentially what he is at this point. It's not about journalism. He has embedded himself with a rights holder in ESPN. Obviously, he has established certain relationships with these sources that are beyond the bounds of traditional journalism. Right. Now, the question is, how much does that information influence the sports book? Dustin brought up a great point. Can Caesars move markets if it's getting information before everybody else? That does not seem kosher. But we're also naive if we don't think that folks who work for sportsbooks have certain relationships with people who are in and around teams and leagues and are plugged into what's going on. Schefter would just be the biggest front-facing kind of person to be in that role. And I think how they use the information Adam Schefter would have would be the big part of it. And just one little point as well, would Schefter still have the same clout among his sources if he's with Caesars Sportsbook versus if he's with ESPN? If you're working for the worldwide leader, everybody knows that that's how they get their information out there. If you're working for Caesars Sportsbook, there could be a little bit more hesitation there.
Yeah, Dustin, that was the other thing I thought about was I can only imagine at that point Caesars ends up sponsoring some sort of segment on some show or something that's like, where he still has an outlet to get this. Because, half of the stuff, you guys have worked with sources before. I've done it, obviously, all the way through. Half of the time, all these people, they don't even want the recognition. They just want to leak you something. And then whenever they see it happen on the television or in a story or whatever, something like that, like, yes, like that, like they just want to see it somewhere. They just want to read it somewhere or hear it somewhere. And so, I imagine he would find a place to kind of still put his stuff out there other than just the Twitter machine. Yeah,
I mean, like you said, or Adam said, loan him out to something. It would make sense. But yeah, like if you're just this like Caesars Sportsbook, you don't have a platform other than your Twitter. It's like your platform then is just your Twitter account, I guess, and whatever content Caesars does. But where Caesars, that creates its own or buys something that's a media play just to house all of these people now. Like it's because it is just like Wingo and Maine are just kind of brand ambassadors at this point. But are you going to create like an ESPN Light or something? I don't know. Like that may have sounded crazy to all of us a year or two ago, but maybe not. I mean,
trust me. Yes. 2 years ago, I'd have been like, get out of here. Like no way in the world this is happening. And then now I'm kind of like, oh no, this, any of this stuff, like I'm not writing off in the least bit.
Yeah. And as comfortable as the NFL has gotten with betting, like, yeah, I think that you start passing information to the guy who is the voice of Caesars Sportsbook. It looks weird, right? It's and I mean Adam's point is right. Like it's not like this information isn't circle out there with the sportsbooks already, but it is the optics of it definitely start getting to you when you think about how Schefter and Caesars would work together.
Adam, here it is. It's our weekly. Is Florida going to happen or not? So make people happy or make them very sad.
To quote the famous and maybe one of the best of its generation films, Mean Girls, stop trying to make Florida happen. This is something that we keep feeling like, okay, the date's here, and literally today, the date is here where legal sports betting in Florida can begin, and it has not. Hard Rock is able to, by the law, open a retail sports book if it so chooses, along with the Seminole Tribe, of course, and that has not happened to this point. Now, there are lawsuits in D.C., there are lawsuits in Florida, there are lawsuits that probably haven't even been filed yet here. There is still the DraftKings and FanDuel, air quotes, education champions ballot initiative that's out there. But what we know at this point is basically from some reporting in Florida from the Orlando Sentinel and others that says there could be at least a month delay, that the Seminole and Hard Rock are not necessarily ready to go quite yet. Some of our folks had actually heard that was a mutually agreed upon thing to try to work out some of the issues that were happening behind the scenes. And there have been court filings almost every day this week. Our John Holden has been working overtime trying to keep up with all of the court filings going on. And the long and short of it is it's not happening right now. A month out seems like a reasonable bet, but there are court dates coming up within that time that are going to tell us a lot more about the future of sports betting in Florida.
Dustin, what about Connecticut? I mean, it's not anywhere near what we've been jumping up and down about with Florida, but what about Connecticut?
Yeah, so we're in soft launch for Connecticut. We a small hundreds of users are being granted access to the apps there. We got some information from the lottery, which is partnering with Rush Street Interactive, which is best known as Bet Rivers across the country, not as deployed as Play Sugar House in Connecticut. So they have these users, and not shockingly said everything's going great. I guess they probably would have. I would imagine if things weren't going great, they would say things are. They would not have said anything. So they're telling us things are going great. They said they're seeing normal activity. It's a good test of the system, etc. They've told us a little about what people are betting on, including table tennis. So we might have another state where table tennis is a favorite of the people of Connecticut. Who knows? So soft launch. We're looking at full launch Tuesday, where everybody can sign up at the 3 apps that are live there: DraftKings, FanDuel, and the aforementioned Play Sugar House. So pretty soon the throttle will be off, and you can actually bet anywhere in Connecticut and get your account started at those 3 sportsbooks.
Adam, we talked about a very big thing that could potentially happen in the fact that DraftKings apparently had put in some sort of bid to take over Entain. Of course, then there's the partnership between Entain and BetMGM here in the States. How would this all work out? What does everybody think about all of this? Well, we at least got a little bit of clarity here through a call.
Yeah, Entain had its Q3 earnings and discussed some of the market share growth for BetMGM. BetMGM, according to Entain's Q3 results, revenue of more than $200 million, a 28% share of markets where BetMGM is live, up from 24% in Q2. And I thought the interesting part of this, as our Brad Allen sort of distilled it down, was what does this mean for the potential takeover bid by DraftKings? We know the bid that Entain has acknowledged is in the range of $22 million. That is better than double anything that Entain has seen thus far. What is MGM going to do in response to that? We've covered a lot of that as we go, but as BetMGM continues to grow, and we've seen that in states like Michigan, iGaming has helped MGM toward the top of market share. They were touting that over the last couple of days when the Michigan numbers came out. And so, MGM's obviously spent a lot, pushed a lot in the last year and a half. And I think it's a reasonable question to say, if this BetMGM growth continues, what does it mean for Entain's value? Is that $22 billion bid even enough? And frankly, as we've heard some smart people in the space say right now, is there any number that's too high? Like, the revenue multiples are all kind of crazy in the first place. Like, if you're acquiring something that is a major step in front of your competitor, which DraftKings would be doing with BetMGM to some degree, then what is too much?
So, Dustin, one of the things that we should mention here whenever we're talking about this, people going like, well, what is the big deal with Entain? Why would DraftKings want it in the first place? And this is the thing where we know the long game here for all of this is always going to be online casino, and that's where Entain really, really thrives.
Yeah, we say this all the time. We're still early days, and we may or may not get more online casino here in the U.S. in the near future, but we're still looking at basically just the 3 states: Michigan, Pennsylvania, New Jersey. There's limited in Delaware, Nevada. You can play some poker, but not otherwise. But this is, again, I beat this home, but like if you're looking for revenue, casino always outpaces sports, right? That's you're going to look at that, and that is. And these operators are looking at that too. Is like someday the sports betting, you're gonna plateau, right? Sports betting plateaus. You don't have a whole lot of growth you can do other than shuffling around market share down the road. So the next frontier is casino, and getting it legalized, and then having the best product there. So DraftKings has been nothing but that forward looking. They were well ahead in sports betting. They were working on a sports betting product for a year before PASPA fell in 2018, and they are trying to buy everything up to be prepared for the next thing, which it really is casino. And we still just have not hit the end of the road there. So that's from that perspective, it's really smart to be thinking ahead. Still, like you're paying for the valuations tied up in sports betting right now, and all of that. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out of all of this.
In Tennessee, if you guys remember, one of the weird quirks that we talked about here on the podcast was the fact that written into the bill was that there had to be a minimum hold for the state, which we were saying, okay, this doesn't make any sense. Why would you do this? All this is going to do is create some havoc down the line. And sure enough, Dustin, it seems as if it didn't take very long for some of these books to come back around and say, guys, this has got to go.
Yeah, so right now Tennessee is considering the possibility of proposed changes to look at the what's a 10% mandatory hold rule there in Tennessee, which doesn't exist anywhere else in the United States. So you have to basically the rule that's written in Tennessee. You have to hold 10% of bets, otherwise you're going to pay a fine. So that may sound like something that sportsbooks will want, but if you get into it, it's not optimal for the customer, because then you have to, either one, you're going to pay fines, or two, you're going to have to create a product that's not good for the consumer. So sportsbooks themselves don't want this. This is bad for consumers. It's really, it's meant to protect the state and guarantee them X revenue, but they're going to get the best revenue most likely by having not a mandatory hold. So not shockingly, some of the all of the big operators, really, and not all of them, but most of them proposed, said we should be getting rid of this mandatory hold, that it's not, that it's not what the legislature wanted, that this is bad for consumers, that we don't we want to maximize revenues, but this is not how we want to do it. So we've long said this is a dumb rule. They hopefully will get rid of it. But right now they're just thinking about changes to the, should we be reviewing it? Is this working? It's not really to date. It's not been the end of the world, but it's just a bad rule. And at some point, I think everyone basically agrees. Hopefully, the committee that is in charge of this in Tennessee agrees that this rule should go away.
Matt, just to add one thing to that, there's a bit of hope that wasn't there in the past. Keep in mind that the regulator is in the process of changing in Tennessee. This is where it comes down to the road, because the lottery used to be overseeing sports betting, and the executive director of the lottery made clear she wanted nothing to do with overseeing sports betting, and we've seen the issues that have gone on with Action 24/7 and some other things down there. So it's transferring to this committee. The best we understand what happened down there, this minimum hold idea originated from inside the lottery. And so if the lottery is giving up control, there is an opportunity there potentially for a new set of eyes to be looking at this rule and potentially not have the same attachment to it.
Yeah, let's hope that cooler heads prevail there. That was one of the more silly things that we've seen actually get implemented throughout all of this. Adam, take us home here with some of the other states around the country.
So I'll start in Maryland, where a meeting of the Rules Committee that was scheduled for this week was postponed without any real explanation. We thought Maryland was going to move a little bit faster than it has after voters approved it in 2020 at the ballot, and then legislators set up the structure for it this year. But this has really taken a turn toward thinking that not only could we be looking at an early 2022 launch, but there is some scuttlebutt out there that it could be longer than that. Maryland seems to have kind of gone off the rails here, which is interesting because D.C. obviously has the terrible products that it does through the lottery. Virginia is growing. Golden Nugget was just approved in Virginia. I should say just went live in Virginia this week after being approved months ago. So the markets around Maryland are growing, and you would think that some of that market share is going to be taken up in the general DMV process, but we shall see what Maryland ultimately decides to do. We had an announcement from Canada this week from PointsBet, and I just want to talk about it because nothing was more fun to me in the last Winter Olympics than watching late night curling. Like, nothing felt better to me than just watching a bunch of dad bods get out there and slide these rocks up and down the ice, and me think to myself, my athletic career might not be over. Like, there's a chance I could do this. I wouldn't be good at it, of course, but there's a chance I could do this. And so PointsBet has announced a sponsorship deal with Curling Canada. And I feel like if you're looking for a way to win the hearts and minds of our friends north of the border, like number one listener Julian, I feel like you should be looking at curling, and we're going to do this, right? Like, we're going to have an LSR curling team.
Curling and ketchup chips.
Curling is amazing. We have a curling rink in Bend. Not rink is not the right term. I want to play someday.
A sheet. Is it a sheet?
Curling sheet.
I don't know. I'm just going with that.
Curling is chess on ice. It's amazing.
So you have a place you can actually go play this.
I do. You got to have one. I bet there's one in Vegas. No.
Oh God, no. I mean,
we can indoor skydive here, but we can't. We can't curl. Like,
no. I mean, you probably would have to talk to the Golden Knights and be like, "Hey, can we borrow that sheet for 10 minutes?
Do you mind? Yeah. Do you mind?" And they'd be like, "Oh, curling's great, eh?" And I'd be like,
"Oh,
yeah.
I forget.
Y'all are Canadian. That's definitely correct. I've never ice skated one time in my whole life. FYI. Fun.
No, and here's the ridiculous part. You're such a good athlete that you would probably like get on the skates once and be like, "Oh, why wasn't I doing this before? I'm good."
I don't know. I saw someone smash their head open. I was in line to do it, and I saw someone smash their head open, and blood just exploded all over the ice, and I just turned around, and I sat the skates right back on the counter, and I was like, sorry.
Deuces.
I'm out.
I learned
Don't
today,
even need to
actually,
refund me. Keep the money. I don't care.
Curling is all the rage. I learned from one of our Canadian employees that one of their worst injury was on playing curling.
What?
Falling on the stones somehow. Where all the stones are collected, and fell on that, and that didn't feel good apparently. I will reveal who this person is for their safety and privacy. It
sounds like some sort of convoluted $1 million baby story there. Like, oh no, they fell and they hit the rock. Like, that's awful.
It sounded awful. It sounds painful.
I just looked on
those
Amazon.
handles look sharp.
I can get a curling stone. I can buy one on Amazon. I'm going to get one. I'm definitely buying one.
Well, I mean, cold enough in Vegas right now. You could throw some water out on the driveway, right?
It's freezing here. Seriously.
Oh, stop it. Stop it. It is 65 degrees. Stop it.
It was 42 this morning. Thank you very much.
Oh, no.
Yes. Yeah, it was. It was 42 this morning. Guys, everything that we talk about here you can find in a written form over on LegalSportsReport.com. Be sure and take in all the great work Adam and his crew are doing over there. And again, if you do not follow Dustin Gouker and Adam Candee on the Twitter machine, it's free. Go do it right now at Dustin Gouker, at Adam Candee, 2 E's. No Y. For Adam, for Dustin, I'm Matt. Talk to you guys next week.